Welcome to Literally Speaking, a featured author series presented by Prince George's Community College Alumni Association. We produce this to introduce and increase the audience for contemporary literature and poetry by authors who have a relationship with Prince George's Community College and those whose work has a relevant impact on the experiences of our alumni and our current students. So I would like to introduce to you Tawan Perry. Mr. Perry has overcome incredible odds to become the person he is today. After barely completing high school, he grew sick and tired of doing nothing with his life. So he enrolled here at Prince George's Community College and struggled to get out of developmental classes. With hard work and persistence, he was awarded the OBA Scholarship. And Mr. Perry is an alumnus of Prince George's Community College and was named a Fabulous 50 alumni in 2008. Mr. Perry is also a motivational speaker and an award-winning author of several books. He created the Connect 5 college completion program that addressed the needs of student leadership, college completion, and diversity. Mr. Perry has been on a featured guest on NBC, ABC, CBS, PBS, and Fox, and has visited 25 countries. Mr. Perry is a product of what it is to have a Prince George's Community College education. And so please join us and me in welcoming Mr. Tawan Perry to Prince George's Community College, Literally Speaking.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for coming out. I know it's a little cold outside, so I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. I think what I'm going to start off with is sort of the question of how I started writing this book and what inspired me to write the book. I think that's the first question I want to tackle today before I actually go into the book and start reading. Well, it was about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I was getting back from a trip, and I was talking to my mother. And one of the things we talked about was, so what's next for you? You know, you've done really well at your job. What do you want to sort of accomplish? And I had this feeling of I wanted to do a little bit more. I wasn't sure what it was, and so she made the very bright suggestion of, as she always does, was to write a book. Now, at first, I was just like, well, who would read what I would write? And so I started thinking more and more about it. So then it came to subject matter. What was something I knew a lot about? And it was college students, because for 5 or 6 years, I had worked with college students, once as a college administrator, but in other capacities as a student leader. So I wrote this book with college students in mind, and for me, it was really about showing college students how to be successful, because I didn't necessarily have that blueprint, that path. I mean, I was one of the first people in my family to actually graduate from college. So for me, it was very important to write a book that students could read and it would be accessible for them, that would give them timely advice that they could use immediately. And so that's how College Sense, what college and high school advisors don't tell you about college, was born. It was born out of suggestion to write a book for my mother. So I'm going to actually start off with an excerpt from the original, and then I'm going to spend the bulk of the time on the revised edition. But I want to talk about my experience here at Prince George's Community College, because I think that's really important since, of course, this is where a lot of my success started. Unashamed and humble, in the spring semester of 1997, I enrolled as a full-time student at Prince George's Community College. It took only a couple of weeks to discover that my ideas about community college, being the 13th grade, was very wrong. Indeed, I found community college to be a place that cultivated growth and success. If you're willing to work hard, good things would happen. I arrived full of academic deficiencies, but determined to make things work. Right before I enrolled, my family was not doing the best financially. In spite of this, my mother believed that I would succeed, so she wrote a check for $185. And actually, that covered the rest of my tuition. The rest, I think, was covered from a Pell Grant. Neither of us knew that would be the last check that she would ever need to write for me in college. I had no idea that the day I set foot in community college would be the day that my life would forever change. I knew that going back to school would not be easy, but I also knew that failure was not an option. What other options did I have? Go back and work in the warehouse stuffing envelopes? The answer was clear to me. Work hard and never, ever look back. As clear as this goal was to me, my first semester presented different challenges in and outside the classroom that were very discouraging. One notable challenge was scoring below the required score on the math placement test. This of course meant that I had to take remedial math classes before I could take the required math classes that I wanted toward my degree. Despite this setback, some brighter days were ahead. Now, I'm going to pause there and talk a little bit about what the experience and challenge was for me, because it certainly was tough. I mean, I know a lot of students come to community college and they have done 12 years of regular school, K through 12, and they get here and they're a little frustrated. And that's understandable, but the key is to keep going. The key is to surround yourself with the right people. One of the biggest mistakes that I made when I first started taking developmental classes was that I wasn't going to tutorial services until I failed a class. And then I was a part of the Lana program then, and then my mentor at the time, Janice Watley, said, you're going to start going. And that's what really changed things. I started really going to the tutor. I probably went every day I was on campus. I was on campus probably 4 days out of the week, so I was going every day after class. And you know what? Good things actually started happening for me, and it was one of the best decisions that I actually made. So while I'm not happy that I ended up in developmental classes, it was very humbling. And I really had to work for what I wanted. And I think a lot of students now, they assume that success is going to come, overnight, and it doesn't come overnight. In spite of what you may believe, you have to continue to work hard at it. But I guarantee you, if you use the resources that are actually on campus and you build the relationships, good things will certainly happen. So after my first semester at Prince George's Community College, I earned a 4.0 GPA because I was only in developmental classes for math, but I wasn't for reading and writing. Consequently, the college offered me one of the most prestigious scholarships, the Apartment Office Building Association, otherwise known as the AOBA Scholarship. And not only did this scholarship furnish a means to pay for school, but it also provided me with an opportunity to intern in the summer for K Management, and one of the company members within this organization. Prior to this scholarship, I had to work to cover college costs. I also had to do this while catching 2 long bus rides to and from school. And today is not a good day to catch the bus now, is it? But with the scholarship, I could now completely focus on school without the distraction of work. And as a result, other doors were beginning to open. This scholarship was a turning point in my early college career. The exposure that this scholarship provided me was simply the best. I still can remember sitting at tables and having conversations with politicians and multimillionaires. And I think when you find yourself in those type of situations, it does begin to transfer you because you start believing that you're just as good and you deserve the best. I remember meeting, then at the time, Governor Glenn Denning, who was the governor of Maryland, I want to say in the late 90s, of course. And it just, for me, was like, wow, he's actually shaking my hand. This is a 19-year-old thinking that this man actually took the time out to take pictures with us and greet us and things like that. So it was truly, for me, a transformative experience. That was the first time I had ever really experienced anything like that because I wasn't particularly the best student in high school. In high school, I think I graduated with I want to say a 2.2. And my sophomore year, I actually almost flunked out of school. But Mama stepped in and that didn't happen. But make it known that the point I'm trying to say is that because of that scholarship, I was able to get exposed to bigger and better things. And I started to view myself very differently in terms of me deserving and wanting the best. And it actually made me, work hard because I knew if I worked hard, other types of success would follow. Now, this kind of interaction has a way of shaping your perspective about life. I had never envisioned myself sitting with multimillionaires and politicians when just a year before I was working in a poorly lit warehouse, stuffing envelopes and feeling uncertain if I would have a job the next day. After being on a scholarship for 2 years, I felt grateful and honored to have been a part of such a tremendous experience. Although it seemed that I had arrived at a level of success, I knew that I was always a step away from waking up at 5 a.m. and finding myself working in a warehouse. So I remained focused on my goal. As I understood it, having a college degree would allow me to have more options. And obviously, when you have more options, you have more freedom. And when you have more freedom, you can do much more than you ever imagined with your life. And what's great about whether you start at a community college or a 4-year, college itself gives you that opportunity. And what I love about community college is you actually get that opportunity without all of the debt. Because we're all aware that now the debt is well on a rise. And so why not start your career at a community college and save lots of money in the process? I remember being in high school and having friends that lived in middle-class neighborhoods. Seeing these homes made me think about the life I had, what life had to offer in comparison to where I was living at the time. Not until I graduated from college did I begin to envision myself owning one of these homes. I realized that I was not necessarily stuck in my situation and that if I worked hard, I could achieve success. Make no mistake, over the course of my 3 years at Prince George's Community College, I encountered plenty of distractions, failures, and disappointments. Failing to pass a developmental class for 2 consecutive semesters, seeing a friend go to jail, dealing with the drama of the near divorce of my parents, supporting my mother through a very serious surgery, and considering quitting school to work full time. At times, it just seemed like was happening too much. Too much was happening at once. Now, here's a great part of the book, and then I'm going to switch over to the other book in just one moment. Besides self-determination, I think what made me keep going was the support that I received while I was in school. I had great mentors who would not allow me to give up. They would always say to me, "I know you can't see where you're going, but we can." And sometimes, you have to believe in the belief that others have in you before your own belief kicks in about yourself. And I think that's excellent. And that was certainly the case, not just at community college, but also at other places that I eventually would go to school. They would say, "Keep working hard. We know you can do it." Through all these difficulties, these special people encouraged and supported me. Before the start of my last year, I remember expressing to my mentor, Janice, that I just got a new job and that it paid quite well. While she was excited about my success, she also cautioned me not to get comfortable because she felt that I was destined for greater things. I really wanted her to be excited about my opportunity, but I realized that she saw the big picture and she wanted to see me in that big picture. Like most community college students who had a good paying job, I fell into the trap of questioning the necessity to transfer to a 4-year institution. After all, I was in the midst of finishing my associate's degree, but nevertheless, I did not let the lure of a well-paying job distract me, and I continued to press forward. I think that's a challenge for many community college students because they suddenly obtain a well-paying job and school doesn't become the focus anymore. And I think so many students are lost as a result of that. But the key is to remember that there's a much bigger picture. Now, of course, I never thought that I would actually go off to a 4-year institution and then eventually go to another school in Massachusetts and get my master's degree. But it was all in divine order, I believe, and I think was setting me up for what I'm doing right now, which, of course, is allowing me to touch the hearts and minds of so many young people across the country. But had I stopped my journey in community college with that well-paying job, who knows where I would be. So for all the young people out there, especially, I would say just try to stay focused on a bigger picture, whatever that may be. So this time I'm going to take a pause before I go into the next book and just answer a few questions. Not all at once.
Good afternoon, Mr. Perry. How are you?
All right, how about yourself?
Good. As someone who works on campus with the program helping high school students transition into higher education, what would be your biggest piece of advice for high school students in terms of making a successful transition from high school education into post-secondary, based on your experience?
Well, I think, obviously gathering information and utilizing that information. I was reading from this book, but there's a lot of information I'm going to share today that can actually help high school students make that transition. But the first piece is really having a vision and following that vision, being very specific about what it is you want to do. Most students who are in high school will say, who are not necessarily prepared or maybe don't have that person that have gone to college, and their family may say, I just want to go to college. Well, there are many questions that you have to ask. What type of college experience do you want to have? And once you get there, what type of resources can you actually tap into that's going to make the difference? A lot of students think that every college is created equal, and that's not true. We all know that. You have to find the best fit for you, because the difference in finding a school that is a good fit for you could be the difference between dropping out or graduating. So I would say that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How would you encourage students to select their mentors?
Wow, that's a very good question. I think the question is twofold. I think certainly you can go about selecting your mentor by, finding someone who may be in a similar field or someone that you may have a good connection with. But I think the key is understanding that mentors actually choose you. And a lot of that is because of how you may carry yourself. A lot of students say, well, I just want a mentor, but they don't necessarily carry themselves in the way that would attract a mentor. I was told very early that when you become attractive, you attract success rather than having to pursue it. And I think that's very important. It's a very important concept to get, because most people think that they have to go out and find something, but it really starts with you. So once you become attractive, things will become attracted to you, because every mentor loves to have a student that they can brag about. No, I know I do. So thanks for the question. No pressure. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start with this book, the revised edition, the one you know and love. So if I could have all of you sort of follow with me. I'm going to read it, but I want you to follow. I'm actually going to start on where do I want to start? I'm going to start. I'm starting on page 67. I think that's a good place to start. At the bottom.